right. So yesterday when we were talking about the parts of your excretory system and we were labeling them and you were coloring them, I mentioned to you that the kidney has 3 functions, and so I'm just going to be very specific about this. We will talk about all 3 of them in turn. One of the kidney's functions is to regulate water concentration in the blood, and that function is called osmoregulation. Another one of the kidney's functions is to maintain acid-base balance in our bodies. And the third function of the kidneys has to do with waste. And so we will focus on the waste function first, because it's the most detailed one in this section. And then we'll come back to the other 2 afterwards. So your kidney is the major organ we'll talk about of excretion, because it is the one that is taking the waste and making it, essentially. The other structures are important. They help it get transported out of your body, but the kidney is the structure really that's producing or filtering that waste out of your blood and making a substance that you can excrete. So I'll just pause so that now, just so that you have a place to reference when I ask you about this again, and I most definitely will, these are all examples of homeostasis, your body trying to maintain a constant internal environment. And so your kidney is contributing to homeostasis when it does any of these 3 functions. If it's maintaining the same or constant water concentration, if it's maintaining acid-base balance, or if it's filtering waste out of our blood, it is helping our body maintain homeostasis, keeping things constant. Now, another thing that I want to mention down at the bottom is where we talk about waste products. You might think to yourself, Jesus, Mrs. Baxter, that must be a typo. I thought we were talking about the kidney, and we are. But here's an example, again, where your liver makes something, but another organ is involved in processing it. So please notice how your liver has a function for your muscles. It has a function for your digestive system. It has a function for your excretory system. Your liver is involved in a lot of things. And so it would be very intelligent of me to ask you about organs that have to do with more than one system when we get to the end of this whole section on physiology. So we already know that your liver can store glycogen so that your muscles can use it quickly. We already know that on that same note, that's involved with your digestive system, so your liver can help maintain blood sugar levels. And now we know that your liver is involved with your excretory system because it's helping produce the waste product that your kidneys are going to filter. And you'll see that your liver is involved in your respiratory system, which we will do next. It won't be a surprise when you see the liver show up again. So what we're going to talk about first is this process called deamination. This is the way that waste is produced, and we kind of need to know how the waste is produced before we can talk about how the waste is removed from your blood. Does anyone need to ask a question about the functions of your kidney or need this screen to still be up? So then what is deamination? Deamination, if you look at the word, is the breakdown of amino acids. Deamination. So it has, like I'm undoing something, and then amination sounds like amino acid. It occurs in your liver. Now what's happening? Deamination is breaking down amino acids. So you might want to remind yourself, where does an amino acid come from? And I'm just going to remind everybody that amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. So excess protein gets broken down in your liver by the process of deamination. Now what happens is that an amino acid is broken down into two groups, the amine group and the carboxylic acid group. And so I'm just going to pause so that everyone can make sure they have up to there written down. So over here on the right, I have a couple of pictures, and I'm going to focus on this one first. This is an amino acid. If you look in the center, there is a C for carbon. On the top, there's an H for hydrogen. On the bottom, there's an R, and that's because there are actually 20 different types of amino acids, and they all have a slightly different piece on the bottom. And I just want to show you what a generalized amino acid looks like. On one side, you have a group that says H2N, and on the other side, COOH. This is the amine side. This is the acid side. So an amino acid is called that because of the groups that are on the left and the right. So the idea is, if I'm doing deamination, I am going to remove this side. That's the amine side of an amino acid. So I'm taking away the N and some H. Now there's a bit of a reaction involved here, and knowing the details of the reaction or the process through which it occurs isn't my focus. But I want you to notice what I get at the end. I end up with some NH3, which is ammonia. So essentially, I take an amino acid, I rip off the side that has N on it, a little bit of chemical reaction happens, and I end up with NH3, which is ammonia. Ammonia is a household cleaner. You can buy it at Safeway. Ammonia or something like it is usually what you find in Windex. I don't even remember what I was saying anymore. About how ammonia is a household cleaner and is in Windex. Ammonia has a really bad smell to it, if you've ever smelled ammonia. If you think about how Windex smells, pure ammonia smells like that, but 10 times worse because it's more concentrated. Now, when I take apart my amino acid, the acid part I can actually use in cellular respiration. So all is not lost. I'm going to recycle that part of it, and it can become part of the steps that occur in cell respiration. I could oxidize it to get a little bit more energy. The amine group, as you saw over here, ends up making ammonia. The amine group itself only has 2 hydrogens. Ammonia has 3 of them. So as part of this process, the amine group is combined with another hydrogen atom. Now it doesn't stop here. Ammonia is actually quite toxic. When we have ammonia in the chem lab, because sometimes we use it, we actually have to store it where we store dangerous acid chemicals because of the nature of its contents. Since ammonia is pretty toxic to your body cells, it'll be converted. It gets converted to urea. Now, urea is usually the substance that's actually in your urine. It's a derivative of ammonia. So if I take ammonia and add CO2, now I have urea. The shape of the molecule is not something I want you to focus on. I don't want us to get bogged down in little details. But I want you to recognize that after the ammonia is made, it gets converted so that it's not as toxic to your body. I could also take several urea molecules, so times 2 or more, and make some uric acid. Now, one of those two substances, either urea or uric acid, is generally what your liver dumps into the blood. So your liver is doing this process. It'll dump these substances into the blood, and as your blood flows through your kidneys, now your kidneys will be able to filter them out. So keep in mind that your kidneys filter those wastes out, but they are not actually producing them. Your kidneys produce urine, which is the substance that exits your body, but they don't produce urea. Your liver does that. Now I'm just going to pause here and see if anyone has any questions they'd like to ask about this technical part. This is your liver, and this is your muscles. Oh, it says muscle right there. Good thing I wrote it twice. So the idea here is that your liver and your muscles actually speak to each other quite a bit. Your muscles are constantly looking for energy sources, and your liver can help them out in more ways than one. We already know that your liver can help regulate blood sugar levels by responding to insulin or glucagon by storing glycogen. But your liver can help with this glucose problem a whole nother way. In this cycle, called the glucose-alanine cycle, and if I wanted to give a title to this example, that's what I would call it. In this cycle, alanine, which is an amino acid, so it's part of a protein that's in your muscle, is taken through your blood up to your liver. And so your muscle will give up some protein in favor of getting some energy. What will happen is that through some steps, alanine will be converted to glucose, and your blood will transport that glucose back to your muscles so that your muscles can use glucose for energy. So the idea here is that your muscle gives up protein for energy. And it's a cycle because your muscle can recreate that protein, get some more energy again if it needed to. But the idea is that your liver performing deamination is actually providing fuel for cell respiration. So it's actually providing glucose for your muscles. So in the notes, when I said one part of the amino acid can be used in cell respiration, this is what I mean. We can send one piece of it to a tissue like a muscle that's requesting energy for cell respiration. So I think we ended up coming up with all of these as I walked around the room. Someone mentioned at least these things one time. There are some organs that produce some excretory substances. Now, some of the examples that people mentioned, although it's something that your body doesn't need anymore, like a lot of people mentioned dead cells or dead skin falling off. That's true. That's something that your body's not using anymore. I was sort of going for a substance that's produced on purpose rather than just death of cells happening, even though that's not incorrect. There are 4 organs that I wanted to mention in terms of waste. Your lungs are definitely one of them. Your lungs produce waste. And the waste that they are producing is generally carbon dioxide and water in the form of a vapor, so gas. Every time you breathe out, a little bit of humidity comes out with it. That's why you can see your breath in the winter. What you're actually seeing is the water vapor that's coming out of your lungs basically freezing outside because the temperature is below zero. Now, your skin, you know, produces sweat. And I just want you to look at the substances that are coming through your skin and the substances that come out of your kidneys. Don't they look kind of the same? So if you've ever asked yourself, why does it smell bad in the hallway by the gym? It's because when people sweat, they are basically making the same substances as when they pee. So your sweat and your pee are made out of the same stuff. Doesn't that make you feel good now about sweating? You get a little bit of sweat in your eye. Now you can think about how that's the same as having pee in your eye. I did. This is one of the best parts of my whole job. Mhm. Or think about this. You're in a hot tub, your pores are open, you're sweating, other people are sweating. They might even be peeing in the hot tub too, but who cares? Because if you're sweating, you're peeing, basically. Basically, yeah. Basically. This is why you got to clean your hot tub, people. Even if you don't think that it looks dirty, if someone sat in there for 15 minutes, they probably made a pint of sweat if it was at about 102 degrees, which is typical. That's a lot of urea and a lot of salts. Now, when we say the word salts, I don't mean like table salt. Salt is a general term for a soluble ionic compound. And so it's a really general term. Actual salt, like the white stuff that you sprinkle on food, falls in this category. But ionic compounds that are made of metals and nonmetals, so things like sodium chloride or potassium iodide, these are all salts. A number of these are excreted through your skin. And so don't think about your sweat being pee, but you've probably had your sweat go in your mouth before and it tastes kind of salty, and that's because there are these salts in it. Now, when we're talking about your intestine, what we really mean is the rectum and the anus at the end of your digestive tract. Although your intestines are sort of the last major structure that's there, undigested material is what forms most of the waste that leaves your digestive system. But there is also bile. Bile is one of the reasons that you have some nice color to the substance that's coming out this side. I'll also let you know that in here are dead red blood cells, because someone was asking me about dead cells. Red blood cells have a finite lifespan. They don't generally last longer than 4 months, and so they're constantly being recycled. They have some substances and proteins in them that give them the color that they have, and when we decompose that, that is what is giving color to your feces that's coming out. Now, your kidneys are the ones we're focusing on. From your kidneys, you will have water. Now, even though water is a desirable substance, your body loves water and does not want to give it up, the only way to make these waste products leave your body efficiently is to dissolve them in water. So water is necessary as the solvent. If you could imagine if there were no water and you had to excrete solid waste through your excretory system, it would be like having a kidney stone every minute of the day. And it would be fairly painful and not very efficient. Does anyone know someone who's had a kidney stone? Like, were you there when they were having the kidney stone? It was you. Oh, so did you have to pass it or did they zap it? Oh, so you had to pass the kidney stone, and did they let you look at it afterwards? So did you like look at it afterwards and see how big it was? I know a few people who have had to pass kidney stones, and you should see the agony that they're in. And when it comes out, it's like a tiny little minuscule pebble, but it causes an incredible amount of pain. And so water is necessary so that a fluid can flow through your ureters and your urethra instead of a solid. Now notice that urea and uric acid are the ones that I mentioned there. If for some reason your body happened to not convert some ammonia, it would be excreted there too. Although generally ammonia is converted right away, and so that's not an issue. Up until there, does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask? Yes. If you have a kidney stone and it was too large to pass, like it was blocking one of the tubes in your excretory system, there are surgical options. One of the things that they do now is they'll go in with like a little laser beamy thing and break it apart. So you would still have to pass it, but you'd have to pass smaller pieces of it instead of the huge piece. If it was really so big that you couldn't do any of that, it might require like a surgery where the doctor goes in and just physically removes it from the spot that it's in. But usually those ultrasonic waves that break it up would be the choice they would take first because it's non-surgical, so you don't have to be cut open for that to happen. Does anyone else have questions they'd like to ask here? So I'm just going to pause for a second.